Vegan living is a moral obligation. This year I've graduated to level 30 vegan after practicing this abolitionist stance for the last 14 years. Level 30 vegan means you check the ground for bugs when you walk, you're a potatovore, and you commit arson whenever you free animals from farms. I'm just kidding, but not about the 14-year anniversary. I became vegan back in March 2011 after watching the shocking and visceral documentary Earthlings. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made, on par with quitting driving and tying my pipes to disable my ability to pump a baby into this unjust existence. I've shown that documentary to others in an attempt to free them from their apathetic slumber, but with no success. I still don't understand how people can watch something so intense and not be motivated to change their behavior. Even better than that documentary is the most important speech you'll ever hear by Gary Yourofsky. I link it to most of the videos I post on YouTube in the description. Gary was the best animal rights activist ever, in my opinion. So, why is veganism a moral obligation? I can't believe I actually have to write a post explaining something that should be common sense, but clearly isn't. Otherwise, animal slavery would be a thing of the past by now. I already explained the true seven deadly sins in the previous post, and the animal product industry violates all seven. I'm going to get creative and put our transgressions against our fellow mortals in terms of the seven forms of theft. Murder. We murder we murder animals by the tens of billions and possibly even trillions every year if you include all the marine animal lives. Murder is obviously wrong, but humans love to lie to themselves by conveniently excluding the animals used to fuel their addictions. Even in most dictionary entries of the word, animals are excluded. There is no such thing as humane slaughter. That is an oxymoron. The humane thing to do is not to murder. It doesn't matter whether a cow gets a knife to the throat or a chicken gets electrocuted. The level of brutality is irrelevant. It's all evil. If it's not if it's not obvious enough that they don't consent, all animals resist when we try to slaughter them. Maybe, just maybe, that means it's not right. Assault. I've never bore witness to more brutal assault, even in horror movies, than that which we inflict upon the most vulnerable of creatures. Animals are hung upside down, kept in tiny cages and farrowing crates, kicked, stabbed, beaten, dismembered, scorched, and all manner of brutal cruelty you can imagine by bored and desensitized slaughterhouse workers. It is a level of pain and suffering that most of us cannot even begin to imagine, nor would we even want to. Rape. The first thing that comes to mind is the cows on the world's dairy farms. The bulls forcibly have their semen taken from them, and the cows have a fist shoved up their vagina to impregnate them. They even call the devices rape racks in the industry, which is a device used to restrain the animal so that they can be violated. Trespass. Countless hectares of natural habitat are destroyed to clear land for growing crops to feed to animal slaves. In the process, the homes of countless animals are destroyed and their lives are often taken too. It is an extremely inefficient way to feed humans and could be drastically reduced if we just grew the crops directly for our consumption. Even for the captive animals, they are trespassed upon when they are pulled from their cages or pastures and physically forced to march to their deaths. Theft. Milk, eggs, honey, leather, wool, fur, silk, and down. These are but a few of the things we steal from them. They are viewed as units of production and are genetically modified to produce that maximum amount of, quote, product, unquote, for our insatiable greed. This genetic modification destroys their dignity and reduces them to an inferior version of their former selves. In a way, you can say we also steal their majesty, and that is probably the most reprehensible crime of all. Coercion. They're coerced to have their beaks trimmed, their tails cut, to be castrated, to be imprisoned, have a hook through their bodies, separated from their families, teeth pulled with pliers, and even have a tube shoved down their throats, to be force fed as with geese in the foie gras industry. Their free will choice is violently stripped from them without mercy. Deception. The animals are deceived by many farmers who raise them in the pastures only to truck them off to slaughter on a whim. The people who consume them are deceived by billion-dollar marketing campaigns promoting health benefits for consumers as well as imaginary welfare for the animal victims. The deception runs deep in every avenue of society. The flip side of deception is gullibility. Billions of eerily gullible people accept this narrative of pure Satanism towards animals. No other practice on earth comes close to the immorality of what we do to the animals in the name of food, entertainment, clothing, pet ownership, and testing. Fortunately, these practices don't go without consequences for us. Human enslavement is an inevitability when we subjugate animals. Why? Because it forms the attitudes required to ruthlessly dominate those that are seen as lesser beings. Our violence against animals retaliates against us. It is a mental illness to want to control and commodify others. It comes from the natural law expression of fear, which is the opposite of love. Psychopathic control freaks have a fear of not having control over other beings. As for the majority of the population, the most common reason they eat animals is because of lifelong conditioning and a strong addiction to uric acid in meat and casomorphins in dairy products. They lack the mental fortitude to admit they have been duped and to change course to a more moral way of living. It's comfortable to be apathetic and go along with the crowd, hence why only a tiny percent of the global population is vegan. The good news is that veganism is gaining far more social acceptance than it had when I started back in the day. The vegan products have multiplied tenfold on those supermarket shelves. No longer is there just tofu and soy milk at our disposal. It has never been easier to have delicious alternatives for all the animal products that we redundantly consume. I'm no ignorant optimist either. I highly doubt I will ever see a vegan world in my lifetime because I see so many carnivore and keto clowns pushing their satanic diets onto a naive circus audience via major social media platforms. These posts are extremely popular compared to the amount of traffic vegan media receives. People love to think of themselves as good, but when it's time to actually walk the walk, the excuses are endless. Only a few rare individuals are open to pointing the finger inwards and saying, fuck, I've been deceived all this time. It's up to me to make it right. They hate to say the three magic words, I was wrong. Vegan living is a moral obligation if we want to create a freer world, not only for the animals but for ourselves too. It is an impossibility to have human freedom without animal freedom. It is also an impossibility to have animal freedom without human freedom, because the same attitudes of domination and exclusion would still be present. Unfree humans also have their information censored and buried by algorithms, which makes it significantly harder for animal freedom to manifest. What's more is the moral obligation of speaking up for the victims of the indefinite Holocaust. I shamefully admit that I have performed poorly over the years with this arduous task. Fortunately, tens of thousands of activists have done the work worldwide, and that is why we see a more vegan-friendly world now than ever before in human history. The numbers of active people are hitherto clearly inadequate, and we are still only at the base of Morality Mountain.